Welcome back to the Paranormal Classroom, where we take attendance for the unexplained. I'm Amanda.
And I'm Lindsay, and we're two teacher moms talking about stuff that freaks us out. All right, test. We're checking it out. I've learned that I'm working on levels, and I'm going to be very loud.
You know what you could do? Because it's the end of your voice that drops down.
Okay.
So you could think about raising it up like the Australians do. Do you know like the Australian accent? It's either Australia or New Zealand, but they end everything like ends on the up. Like it's like a question. They always end it like it's a question when it's not.
Okay, we'll play with that today. We'll see if that works.
That sounds really good. But then you'll have the volume for the end of your sentence.
Oh, God. Okay, well, God help us. What was that?
Oh, we're just here in the
car.
they're
doing they're loading a semi.
Loading van.
All right, so welcome back.
Welcome, scholars.
To the Paranormal Classroom.
I thought you were just going to say welcome. Are you reading something?
Yes, I am. Welcome back to the Paranormal Classroom. I'm here with Amanda. And that's Lindsay.
And that's Lindsay.
Perfect. Okay. What's haunting you, Amanda?
What's haunting you? You sound ridiculous. Yeah, maybe you have to do it with the Australian accent. Like, what's haunting you,
because that's not ridiculous at all. Just adopt an entirely different personality and culture.
I'm just trying to help.
I will be more cognizant of the ends of my sentences, not dropping off and mumbling. Gah.
Wow, you're in for a night, everybody.
Okay. But what's haunting you?
Okay, what's haunting me? Well, I feel really bad. Lindsay pulled up today with, she brought food. I'm like, sorry, poor Lindsay. I went back to my car.
She gets in the car, doesn't even get all the way in, and then I'm like, I'm just going to eat dinner if you don't mind. And she's like, without saying it, she's like, I totally effing mind. So she just turns around. She's like, I'm going to play games on my phone. When you're done, just holler. Okay.
I'm sorry.
I'm so sorry that
sorry.
Because we both have that thing that makes us feel homicidal when people are chewing.
It's called misophonia.
Yeah.
And I really have it pretty bad.
Yeah. I only have it with my husband. Sorry, Mike. I don't think it bothers me with anybody else.
For me, sometimes it's not always chewing. Like some people are pretty quiet, polite chewers, but a lot of people talk with their mouth full, and that's the one that just makes me want to like rage like the Hulk and tear everything apart. So don't talk with your mouth full around me.
No, fair warning.
And I won't tell you to your face because I don't know how to say it. I don't know how to be like, could you please stop? I don't know how to say it in a polite way.
I know. It's better in that. I feel, and it's going to be your coworkers or your family. And so I feel like in a lot of situations like that, you got to just leave.
Yeah.
Like it's better to just leave.
I just take off. I just avoid meal times with people.
Avoidance is always healthy.
But today I had a really good day at work, and then at the end I got this yucky sour stomach.
All right, well, hopefully you'll feel better by tomorrow.
Hopefully you'll feel better by tomorrow.
That's really good.
It's not good.
That's really good. So I can do accents if I immerse myself in a show or something for a while with that accent, then I can keep it going for a bit.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'll like my voice in my head, my conscious or whatever that is when I talk to myself with, will be in that accent. So, like, if I watch Outlander for a while, I've got the Scottish accent. If I watch Bondi Beach tattoo show, whatever, in Australia, then I've got that accent in my head.
That is such a cute quirk about it. It's so much cuter than misophonia.
I'm worried about going to Europe this summer because I'm going to be swapping accents constantly. I can't wait to get an Icelandic accent.
Yeah, they have a cool one. Yeah. A neat one. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, what's haunting me? New rule in my classroom.
Okay.
I'll be curious to see what you think about it. I think it sounds super harsh to adults and like I'm joking when I tell the kids.
Okay,
Here's the new rule. You are no longer allowed to help anyone in this classroom. You are no longer allowed to ask each other for help in this classroom. And they're all looking at me like, what kind of Nazi campus
I know why you
is
did it,
this?
though. I know why you should explain what your specific specialty is, so people don't think that you're.
I would do this in any classroom, but I am a STEAM specialist.
Mm-hmm.
Here's an epidemic in our culture: learned helplessness and learned enabling that is not helpful when kids get directions. You can divide a group of kids into, and probably adults, into 3 groups. One, they're going to get started immediately, no problem. They heard it, they understood it, they're going to do it. The next third either doesn't listen to the directions because they're spacing out, or they don't care. And so when you say, okay, go, get started, they immediately, without even trying, turn to somebody and go, wait, what are we supposed to do? What, can you show me? You do it for, what do we do?
Yeah, and
What'd she say?
It's not like Lindsay just says it once.
Yeah.
But like, you are modeling it, you're repeating it, you've got it posted for those that can
pictures.
read. There's pictures. I mean, it's not just, I mean, there are plenty of opportunities to catch the instructions.
Yep. And there's just that group, that 1/3-ish, that just doesn't seem to care. The last third is the group, bless their little hearts. They will immediately abandon everything of their own work and do the work for the person who didn't care to listen to the directions in the first place. Okay, when I said help earlier, you're not allowed to help each other. That's the word you guys would use. But what you really mean is enable, and teaching them the difference between help and enable. 17 classes in now, and so far so good. Like, I have 2 out of the last 3 third grade classes. Every single person accomplished every single thing I asked them to do by themselves.
They're totally capable. This is why we are encouraged to have high expectations as teachers, because when you have the high ones and you hold them to it, you stay consistent, they'll rise to it.
And it's a time saver, because they waste so much time arguing and squabbling back and forth about, that's not what she said. Or they give misinformation, disinformation. And I caught somebody today. I was like, no, kiddo, you were listening to the directions, but you missed that part, and now you just told them to do it wrong, and now they're a step in the wrong direction. This is why I don't want you helping each other. It's not helpful. So stop it. Stop it right now. Helping is doing something for someone that they cannot do for themselves, at least right now. Enabling is doing something for someone when they can do it by themselves. Knock it off. We'll see how it goes. Check back in a few weeks.
I would like to check.
That's my new policy.
I'm really interested to hear how it goes, especially like if you notice patterns between the different.
I'm tracking data on it, and
we'll
see like just basic data, like how many students and which ones were able to complete everything I asked. What did I observe in the others who didn't? And how many times did I have to redirect away from enabling or learned helplessness? And so far, so good. So we'll see. But anyway, that's a big old thing. Thanks for listening to that whole deal. Okay. Speaking of kids, though, today's topic is one that gives parents and teachers chills. The unsettling, sometimes downright terrifying things kids say.
Oh, fun.
You may remember this. It was a little tease on my Facebook page. So, Amanda, have you ever had a kid say something that made your skin crawl?
Well, you're thinking about like something paranormal? No, but I have had.
Or just freaky weird. Like, you're like,
kids
what?
say horrible things, like, I don't even know if I should share on here, because some kids will share really violent things that happen in their house and in their world, and that stays with me. That keeps me up at night and stays with me. But as far as like paranormal things, I'll have to think. I'll have some think time while you.
Okay.
See if I can
you'll process.
Okay.
So kids have no filter. So when they casually drop things like, I used to be an old man.
I love it.
Or like, the lady in my room says hi. It's impossible not to freak out a little. And my notifications are going off because I forgot to turn them off. So yeah, they have no filter. They'll just say whatever.
I did see one of those. You know how like you're on YouTube or TikTok or whatever, and the little shorts come flipping through, and you're zoning out at night, and you're flipping through. There was one of this mom in a car, and she turns to her young girl in the back. She's like 4. She says, "Do you remember when you were a baby?" And the little girl, 3 or 4, she says, "No, but I remember when I crawled out of hell to join you."
What?
Yeah, it's like one of those YouTube shorts that just flips through.
Oh my gosh. I'd be like, pull over real quick, get the holy water. Oh man, that would be upsetting.
Yep.
Yikes. Well, we're not alone. in having these experiences. So if you've had one, this is a foreshadowing of what your homework will be. We want to know. But tons of parents and teachers have had these moments. Just get on Reddit and type creepy things kids say or scary things kids say, and you'll go for days and days and days and days. Mm-hmm. But I posted it on my Facebook because I wanted to hear from people I know. I'm going to share some real quotes from friends and listeners about the eeriest things their kids have ever said. Later, we have a special guest who will tell us about the time their young daughter befriended a ghost. And I've heard the story, and I wish I had recorded it at the time. So now you'll get to hear it.
I did actually think of a story, but I can save it if you want to keep going, and
okay.
Can add it some other
Plus,
time.
We're going to dive into some researched explanations for why kids say things about past lives, imaginary friends, or things they shouldn't possibly know.
Okay, cool.
Okay. So let's get into it. I reached out to these friends on Facebook, and they did not disappoint. And I know that you saw it, but I'm going to read these to you.
I didn't read them.
Oh, yes!
I knew you were researching something.
Okay, and I want your raw reactions,
okay.
Just like always. All right, here you go. From Mandy, who's a friend who teaches in Arizona.
Hi, Mandy.
She said, my youngest used to talk about her, quote, other family when she was little, 2 to 4, I think. We'd go to new places or do certain things, and she would tell us how she already did this with her other family.
Oh my gosh.
The creepy part was the details consistently remained consistent. At one point, she told us she chose to come be with us and left behind her other mother, father, and a brother. We don't get those stories from her now, but that was an absolute trip back then.
That is wild. I wonder if Mandy, if you ever asked her, like, what was your name or which family or where did to describe
sure.
it? Like, because you could have, I've heard of people being able to research.
Yeah, and look in and confirm. We have a mutual friend named Christine, who's a teacher in our district.
Yes, hi Christine.
And she said, we were reading about the 1906 San Francisco earthquake. This, I am assuming, is in her classroom. Mm-hmm. And one said, in my other life, I was there, and I was so scared when my mom died. Her mom was very much alive.
That's wild.
Yeah. I think I'd be like, and pause for a quick recess. I have some questions.
I'm such a curious, like, I don't know if it's appropriate to, like, ask a million questions of the child as a teacher. I don't know. But I think I would definitely call the mom.
Yes,
and be like,
absolutely.
does this happen at home? Because I'd be so curious.
Yeah. But also kids are also like kind of notorious liars. A lot of them.
They
make
attention.
Their spin tail. What are they called? Tail spinners. Like they can weave a tail.
Right.
And oftentimes they believe it.
Well, we talked about that in our episode on Sam, the Sandown Clown.
Yes.
Which is one of my favorite stories and favorite episodes. But children do lie. We catch them lying all the time. But it's usually short lies and for attention. So we talked about this last time. It'll be like somebody will have a birthday and the kid will be like, it's my birthday too.
Yeah, or it's my mom's birthday.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So a teacher named Nick, who is also fairly local in Sumner Bonnie Lake, he said, this is creepy silly. Student told me, I've been in your hot tub. because they were family friends of the previous owners of our home.
That's not a. He really was.
How shocked would you be if they just blurted that out? But of course, they waited to share the additional context. I've been in your hot tub.
You are so lucky, Nick. That's a great one.
My friend Megan, who I knew in my Pacific Lutheran University days, she's got a young son. When he was 3, her son said that the man in the hallway was looking at us, pointed into the hallway from our bedroom, and said, man with glasses and brown hair was out there. My husband's college roommate had just passed away. There were other sightings of the man in our house for about 6 months. My son would go completely still, staring into a spot in the house and point and talk about a man. We asked if the man was friendly, scary, or in the middle. My son said, in the middle. We told him he could ask the man politely to go away if he was scared. After about 6 months, we didn't hear about the man again.
Whoa. Did they ever show, you won't know the answer to this, but what's your friend's name? Megan? Megan, I need to know. Did you ever show a picture of your husband's roommate to verify it?
Yeah, see if it was him. So another teacher friend named Amy said that when my daughter was just barely 2, I found her standing perfectly still and silent against the wall behind a chair in the living room of our 300-year-old house. When I asked her what she was doing, she said, hiding. From what? Ghosts. I didn't even know she knew that word or what it means.
Whoa. What?
Obviously, this is an East Coast friend.
How old is a 300-year-old house?
300 years.
What is... I can't even picture it. I can't even picture what...
1700s. Mid-1700s.
I can't even picture what that would look like.
They're pretty cool.
I need to Google a 1700
American house.
Historic homes built in 1700 or later. If Google's doing this right, these images are all houses in the 1700s. So they're really big. They're almost like barn houses or like colonial houses. Oh, I know what it reminds me of. You remember that movie? What's the movie with all the family that had all the girls and one was named Kitty and one was Pride and Prejudice?
Oh, yeah.
It reminds me of this set.
Now, are you making sure you're looking at American homes, right? American 1700s, because that's going to be different than European. American. Yeah.
That's gorgeous. This reminds me of like a plantation house.
Pretty yucky, but yeah.
Well, yucky story and background, but beautiful house.
Sure, yes.
This is like Forrest Gump's house. That's really neat.
My friend Odette, who's also local.
That's a beautiful name. Hi, Odette.
Isn't it?
That's beautiful.
She's awesome. She said when we just moved into this house, her son Michael was 5 years old when he said, "Mom, there's a shadow man in the closet." He even made me a drawing of him. He mentioned it was not the same as our last place.
Oh, stop it. Stop.
Yeah.
Does every house have a shadow man?
There better not be.
Well, I told you that
it comes with the deed? No.
I saw one time. We talked about it in our Hat Man
I have not, and I never want to, so spray me with a squirt gun of holy water or whatever. I don't want it. Sage me.
That's a creepy one. That would creep me out.
I'd love to see the picture. Gosh, I wish she had it.
Yes.
Could share it. That's something I would keep forever locked in a box in the bottom of my dresser or something. So teacher Rachel in Oklahoma says, when my daughter was 8 or so, she got a really high fever. She woke up in the middle of the night and ran down our hallway. I found her hiding in the bathroom, and she told me she had to find the talisman. When she woke up the next morning, I asked her about it, and she didn't know what a talisman was.
Weird.
How bizarre is that?
Did you go into research that you're going to go into later on like how kids can tap into some universal vocabulary, intelligence, or whatever, like while we're dreaming? Because I've heard. I'm bringing it up because I've heard of.
That's a new theory.
I've heard of people who can do that, who can tap into like the universal consciousness, or it's also called like Akashic records. I am like a fountain of weird. I've heard of weird things that I've picked up. Yep. But I wonder if that could be explained by that phenomenon, and maybe that little girl was like tapped in.
Maybe, or she heard it in a movie or a TV show, and it didn't register at the time.
Which could have happened with Ghosts, with the little 2-year-old that said she's hiding from ghosts.
But also, who knows? I am wide open. Friend Jamie said, I got an email from a student during COVID that just said, I see you.
Is this our Jamie that we work with?
Nope. Different Jamie.
That's a funny one.
Different Jamie. My friend Ricky's daughter, who my daughter did dance with, said that his daughter told him, you're so old, you're going to die soon. Which is just a kid being
I think kids say stuff like that all the time.
My teacher friend Carrie said, when my youngest son was 4, I took my crew of 5 kids and some friends to a small, spring-fed swimming hole in the backwoods of northeast Oklahoma. My boy paddled over to me and begged me to go help the, quote, little black girl who was splashing over there because it didn't look like she could swim. There was no girl there. He insisted that he could see her and she really needed help. Yikes. It was very creepy.
That's really scary for the
So with that story, when I saw that story, I felt compelled to do some research. So I went and looked up like swimming holes in northeast Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Deaths, drownings, little girls, nothing. There were a couple of drownings, but they were more recent than when this would have happened, and they were older, like teenage boys. So
I don't know. Oklahoma's big.
Not a lot of records. Plus, it was a little black girl.
Plus, there might not be a lot of records. Yeah, there may just have not been a record, unfortunately.
Yep.
But it's cool that you went into, like, the historical research
I had
mode.
to. I was like, maybe there's something and we can verify it right now. Teacher Melanie, and she said, when my daughter wasn't quite 3, she told me that she wanted to go to her mama's house that wore the gold shoes. Her great grandmother died when she was 9 months old and would wear golden house slippers. There is no way that she could have remembered that. And no, I do not have any pictures that she would have seen with her wearing them.
That's a great story. I love that
I
one.
love those, like,
I love it.
past generations, like, connected with the soul of a baby that kind of, like, I just think there's some, like, soul connections in heaven or whatever ether before we get into our bodies, and I think
and it's
that's so cool.
specific. Like, I love it when you get a specific detail like that. Like when you watch mediums talking to people who've about loved ones who passed away. I don't get as excited when they're like, did they have a dog? Like something that could be really generic, as opposed to when they're like, did they have a red couch and in the bottom there was a secret drawer?
Right, right.
In the drawer there was a feather, and in the
yeah.
I love it
Like,
when that happens. I'm like, what's happening?
So this one's kind of longer, so hang in there. This is from a teacher friend named Lori. She says, I have told exactly 2 people this story.
Now,
the child's father,
she's telling the world,
and my husband. I was a live-in nanny for a 2-year-old girl. Some nights, she was more resistant to going to bed than others. Okay, pretty normal. But her resistance escalated to screaming and crying some nights. Her dad wrote it off as nightmares. I checked everything out in her room. I let her sleep with me in my room because she'd just be shaking. I started keeping a log of when it was happening. The days of the week were never consistent, but the time was 2 a.m. every single time. One night, she even climbed out of her crib all by herself and came screaming into the living room. She cried, "Man! Man!" pointing toward her room. I went in. I saw nothing. Now, I'm a skeptical person, but I kid you not. I slept on the floor in her room with her nightlight on for several nights because none of us were getting sleep at this point. One night, the nightlight bulb blew out at exactly 2 a.m. The room cooled. She woke up very suddenly, like something touched her, and I saw a shadow thing near her crib.
Whoa.
I stood up and snatched her out of bed. I was terrified. My gran was very into spiritual stuff and had told me I need to stand tall against, quote, boogeymen when I had night terrors as a kid. I tried to mask my fear and stared down where I'd seen the shadow. "Leave her alone," I said. It stopped. Weirdest thing I've ever experienced in my life.
Okay, there's a lot to unpack there. That's an incredible story. Thank you for sharing that with more people than because she'd only shared it with 2. So there's paranormal phenomenon that people say they've experienced that they swear is paranormal. For example, a light going out, or feeling cold, or seeing a
separately.
shadow. But she had all 3, boom, boom, boom,
yep,
right in a row, which I think is really interesting. I also think it's interesting. So many people say you can tell it to go away. You can tell it to leave you alone. You can be kind of commanding of your space, and they comply. That is interesting to me.
Right.
What are the rules? I always need to know the rules.
We've talked about that, yeah.
What are the rules that these spirits or entities or whatever they are have where they can be so impolite when they're bothering you, and yet they need to be polite when you ask them to go away? What is that?
Humans are the same way. In so many cases, I feel like people will take advantage of people until people say enough. Or people will, like people who are gonna steal, they'll steal $5 out of the register, then 10, then 50, then 100, then 10,000, then bank robbers very rarely start out at getting $1 million. They start small, and until they get like busted, they'll just keep upping the ante. I think people and entities of all kinds are prone to, if they're gonna push boundaries, they'll do it until someone calls them on it or until they're caught, quote unquote.
Wow, but it shouldn't have to get to that point.
No, absolutely not. You should have some sense of like, I would think some innate sense of like where your boundaries are. But I think too much of the time, like there's so many people who haven't had their own boundaries respected. They don't know what boundaries even are.
True. You can edit this out. You can totally edit this out. But I feel like the podcast episode so far has been like on high speed. Like, we're both like,
Yeah.
I need like a second. I don't know. Our listeners might need a second to just like.
We can calm down for a sec.
Because I can't even remember the stories that you started with. So, like, I just think I need a moment.
That's okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah, we have a special guest that we're going to call
I'm
in
excited.
a bit. But they are cool. They know I just texted them, and they're cool to wait a little bit longer. So
I'm super excited to hear from somebody.
It's going to be awesome. It's really going to blow your mind.
Oh, I can tell you my story, and then we could call
have
your friend call.
Yes,
okay?
And then I have more, though. I have.
Oh, yes. I want to hear them all.
More. Can I give you 2 more? They're pretty short.
Yeah.
Well, one's very short and one's short-ish. So, teacher friend Dana said, a student once told me, and this one's funny, my dad calls himself the baker, my mom the oven, and he calls us his little muffins. I'd just be like...
That's really funny.
Melissa, another teacher that I know, another artsy teacher, but also she's an engineer too, which is cool.
Get it, Melissa?
Yeah. When he was little, my son would talk a lot about when, quote, he was a doctor and had a black face. And Melissa is Caucasian, so I'm assuming that her son is as well. In fact, I think I've seen pictures of her children. They are also white. The weird part is that he was super interested in anatomy. When he was 3 at the doctor's office, he found a book of fossilized animals, and it could ID all of them, plus tell the difference between different skulls, Neanderthal and the Homo sapiens.
Whoa!
The doctor was impressed. He also received, this is wacky, get this.
This is the coolest.
He also received cool stuff from friends and relatives as a baby. Not typical baby stuff, rather a Turkish carpet, antlers from Africa, and an indigenous bison bone pipe.
What?
Here's the trip. They were all about 100 years old. I'm not sure about reincarnation, but it was weird. My daughter did something similar. She would tell stories about when, quote, she was the mom. Like, we didn't do it like that when I was the mom.
Oh my gosh, could you imagine?
She would eat onions like apples, my grandma's favorite. Loved Frank Sinatra, also grandma's favorite. Kinda strange. They both outgrew it and now don't remember at all.
That is interesting. There's so much interesting in that story. I'm glad you saved this one for last. It's like, this is like a gem.
Like he was an African doctor
right.
in a past life. It had to be. Like those gifts, people like picked up like, this is what this baby wants.
Right. Because that's what's interesting. That's one of the interesting things about this story is that there's some kind of connection with other people's energy out there where this child
picking up on that vibe. Maybe their past lives connect to his past life. And
oh, that's crazy too. Yeah. And then the other thing is the familial connection. So if both children possibly are recalling past lives, is this something that
an inherited
trait, something in your genes where you have some ability at a young age to maintain those memories if reincarnation is real?
Or you just have the coolest vibes, and so the universe picks your souls over and over and over again. And there's others of us who maybe never have, like, this is the first ride and the last.
I went to a psychic once. This isn't my story. I have a story too about crazy things kids say. But I went to a psychic once, and I went with a friend. I wasn't sure what to expect, but she was really interesting because she says, you're really talented, right? Which is a nice thing to say. And I'm like, well, what do you mean? She's like, well, you can play a lot of instruments. You can play the guitar, you can sing, you can play the piano, you can play the banjo, you can do, like, she starts listing them off, and I'm like, yes, I can do all of that. And she says, you can do all that because you've done it before. So you have some, like, yeah, she's like, you have some muscle memory. You've played all these instruments before. That's why, because I can pick them up. I can sit down and I can just pick up an instrument.
I know you can. It's wacky.
And so that's always stuck with me because I'm like, well, if anything's going to be true about me, that would probably be.
You're a one-woman band.
It's cool.
That's awesome. That's cool. I didn't know that story. That actually leads us right into some research on this phenomenon. There have been multiple studies on children claiming to remember past lives. Mm-hmm. Dr. Ian Stevenson, a psychiatrist at the University of Virginia, spent decades documenting cases where young children provided specific details about past lives that were later verified. Many of these children would talk about their previous families, places they had never been, or even traumatic deaths. His research suggests that these memories tend to fade by the age of 6.
Oh, thank you for doing the research. What's his name, Dr. Stevenson?
Dr. Ian Stevenson with a V in the middle.
Stevenson.
Scientists, though, aren't actually saying reincarnation is real. Of course not. Not yet, anyway. Not necessarily. Other researchers suggest that these memories could be the result of confabulation. Great word. But don't ever accuse me of confabulation.
What is that? Does that mean just being confused about something?
Basically, it's the brain filling in gaps with fabricated or borrowed information.
Okay.
Some believe kids absorb details from stories, overheard conversations, or even genetic memory, which is the idea, and I fully believe in genetic memory, which is the idea that trauma and experiences can be passed down through generations. I call it spiritual genetics, but it's if you do a family history back like 3 generations, pick a side, go back 3 generations, and then if you're able to get stories from those people, so say your grandma, your mom, and yourself, those 3 generations, you will find a remarkable number of, we can call them coincidences, or very similar stories at similar ages happening in your lives.
Interesting.
Positive and negative.
Interesting.
We had to do it when I was in grad school for marriage and family therapy. We had to do this, and we didn't call it spiritual genetics. We just called it like our family mapping, and then we had all these symbols that you had to plug into this different map. But I noticed all these things, so then I started researching. Like, wait a minute, why is this happening to all of the women in my family at age 18? And so then I came across that theory of what they just called it. What do they call it? Confabulation. But I think it's like
Spiritual genetics is what you call it. That's really
genetic
interesting.
Memory. Do you want to tell your other story?
Yes. This was when we were living in Las Vegas, and my daughter was in kindergarten, my youngest daughter, and she made friends with this wonderful little girl. I'm not going to say her name, and you'll find out why, but we'll just call her Girl. So I took my daughter and Girl somewhere for the day, and I cannot remember where, but I'm driving her home. And she's in the back seat with my other daughter. They're both strapped into their little car seat booster things. And she says, I'm not supposed to tell anybody this.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm an alien. Have I told you this story?
Yes, it's my favorite story you've ever told me.
And this girl's a sweet girl, but she's just, she says it like fact. And I said, you're an alien? She's like, yeah, I'm an alien, but I'm not supposed to tell anybody, but I feel really comfortable with you guys, so I'm letting you know, but you really can't tell anybody. And I said, well, what do you mean, sweetheart, by alien? Like, did your family...
Like, are you an undocumented citizen?
I don't think a 5-year-old would know that, but I was trying to be like, did you live somewhere else before? And she's like, yeah, Idaho. And I'm like, no, I mean, before, like, have you come from another country? Does your family speak another language? I'm trying to, like, I'm assuming she's an alien from another country.
Which is a terrible term that I would hope an undocumented citizen would not call themselves, but...
What else maybe am I supposed to think, though? Yeah.
Right. And then, well, immediately I'm like, what planet? Do you know the cat people?
No,
like, I've got to know.
And then she says, no, we're from outer space. We're from space. She said the stars or something. And I'm like, what the heck? And I wanted to ask her a million questions.
I would pull over.
But I didn't want to be weird. I don't know how to explain it. Like, I didn't
want to be weird. I didn't want to
freak
just open the floodgates of weird.
She did. And she was really adamant. She's like, you guys really can't tell anybody. My grandma says that people can't know, or people will be after us.
That's the part that's the weirdest part, is that
this is
grandma said, no, don't tell anybody.
I love that story. And she was in the school where I taught, because my daughter... they were both in the classroom right next door, and I spent the whole rest of the year just kind of staring at her. She was a beautiful, normal-looking human girl with brown eyes, but I was always like, I wonder if I can see something.
Like suddenly her eyes blink the other direction.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, ever since you told me that story a few years ago, I'll get a kid that rolls through, and I'm like, there's another one, alien. You are evidence that aliens exist. Yes. They come walking in, it's like they're tripping on their own feet, their backpacks on upside down, their hair's going nuts, but they're in a great mood, and I'm like, alien. Pretty cute. Well,
this was a fun episode. I'm super excited to hear from your friend.
All right, so we're going to call our special guest.
Yay! You haven't told me
know
who
this person.
Do I like this person?
Yes.
I like everybody. Pretty much. Hi!
a surprise. She didn't know it was you.
Surprise!
Okay, hold on. I gotta hit the record button before I forget. Alrighty. Jamie, I have not told Amanda anything. I just told her that you have a great story, and then tonight, at the beginning of our podcast, I told her that our mutual friend has a story of their child befriending a ghost. So you gotta let her have it.
This is great.
I wished I had recorded the story the first time, and I just was standing in the hallway. I didn't know I should have been. So now you gotta tell her.
Okay. All right. Well, now I have to remember the year. We're gonna rewind. My child is now almost 22. So this is close to like 20 years ago, 19, 20 years ago. She was about 2.5 years old, and my friend and I took my youngest sister and her friend and my daughter down to Florida to visit my gunkles. And they lived near the Clearwater area, and they had this big, huge, old mansion that kind of like got lost in the neighborhood, started running down, but it used to be a very prominent area. I mean, the house was gorgeous. 4 stories, maid's quarters, pool house, all kinds of things. So we went down there, and we decided to go around the corner to a little pub eatery. My uncle, his partner, myself, and my friend, which left my sister and her friend and Maddie at the house. So they knew if they went into the pool, they could only stay on the shallow end of the side, closest to the stairs. My daughter, obviously had her floaties on. So she takes her out to the pool, and we've been gone maybe 30 minutes. And I get a phone call, and she's like, Jamie, you got to get back. You got to get back. And I'm like, what is happening? What's happening? And she's like, I don't know. We're upstairs. We locked ourselves in the attic. We're not coming out till you get there. And I'm like, is somebody there? Is something wrong? Are you hurt? And they're like, no, something happened with Maddie. And I'm like, okay.
You're like, spit it out.
So, I know. So I leave my uncles there, and my friend and I head back to the house, and we go upstairs, we get them out, and Maddie's happy as a clam. No issues, nothing. My sister is like freaking out, and I'm like, okay, we're going downstairs. Tell me what happened. So to set the area of where they were, when you come out of the back of the house, it's a big like cement patio area, and you go down about 5 steps, and then it opens into like a grassy area. Then you go down some more steps, and then it leads you over into the pool area and the pool house. The back side of the pool that runs the perimeter of the house has like really tall trees and a fence around it. And so we go outside, and we're sitting on the patio, and I said, what happened? She's like, well, we were in the pool, and Maddie was sitting on the stairs, and all of a sudden she starts laughing. And like, we didn't know what she was laughing at. And I said, okay, nothing. I'm like, what's going on? And she's like, and then she just kept laughing, and all of a sudden she stood up, walked up the stairs over to the trees, giggling. And so my sister was like, I didn't know if she saw something. She's like, Maddie, get over here. Maddie, what are you doing? And Maddie turns to her with a big grin on her face and said, there's a little boy. Him's little boy. And mind you, she's 2.5. And so my sister's like, there's no little boy, like thinking somebody is on the other side of the fence, but you can't see through the fence. And Maddie just kept saying, him's boy, him's got black skin.
Wow.
Him's a boy. Him's name is Peter.
What?
And so at that point, Katie said she was freaked out, snatched up Maddie, ran in the house, called us to come back.
Didn't just run in the house, she ran up 4 stories to go to the attic.
Right, all the way to the attic.
She was scared.
And Maddie just sat by the trees, laughing and giggling in her own little 2-year-old world. And it freaked him out. So we didn't think anything of it. You know, the whole week goes by. We're down having fun and vacation. We get all the way back to Iowa, and my uncle calls me, and he's like, "Hey, hun, are you sitting down?" And I'm like, "No, I'm cleaning the house." Like, I think you should sit down. And at this point, I'm like thinking something's wrong, you know, and I'm like, what's going on? My family really needs to learn to tell a story, get it out. And so he's like, well, I was at work and we have this one receptionist. She's real old, in her 80s. And they were talking about it. And he was like telling them how at work that his great niece was laughing and giggling with, you know, a little boy and what happened. And he said the old lady looked over at him and said, "You're in that big old house, right? Over on," I don't even remember the name of the street. And he's like, "Yep." And she's like, "Oh, that's the house where that little Negro boy died. What was his name? Johnny? Polly? No, his name was Peter." And my uncle said every part of his body froze.
Whoa.
Because that's the exact name Maddie said. And the lady proceeded to tell my uncle that back in like the 70s, there was a party at that house, and the little boy climbed the fence, fell over, rolled into the pool, and drowned.
Oh, no. I have goosebumps. This is a crazy story.
I know, me too. Right now, it's. He said that anytime they had company over, any child, and they were swimming, the kids just naturally gravitated to the stairs and would get out and go on the one side over by the fence and just like be in their own world.
Oh.
And like so, Peter is the guardian of the pool, watching over the kid. And then to top it off, like I said, this house is huge. We're talking like 7 bathrooms. And, you know, they're fun gay guys down in Florida living it up. And so their house is all colored and themed, right? So we know that there's a bathroom.
I want to go.
I want to go so bad.
The blue tiled bathroom, okay? So that's the infamous one. It's in its own little wing of the house in this hallway, and it's like the guest quarters, like when he has people stay over. And many people said they'd be in the bathroom, like washing their hands, and they'd look up in the mirror, and there'd be a little black kid.
Stop it.
At them. Or they'd look down the hallway, and they would see a little black kid.
Oh my gosh.
So that poor baby,
he's trapped.
Was trapped at that house.
Not the worst place.
Not the worst place to be trapped.
I mean, it's not the worst place, but like just hearing about that is, I mean, just that whole story. When he said that, when I got that phone call, I did end up sitting down because, like, I mean, even now, 20 years later, and I have goosebumps on my whole entire body.
And your gunkle must have so many stories because he lives there with it.
So many people. They don't live there anymore, so I don't know, like, the state of the house or what, but it was wild. That's wild.
Well, hopefully somebody's still taking care of that house.
It would be wild to go there and talk to the owners that Nick now and see if they've seen anything, so you can be like, oh, I know who this little ghost is. And here's the story of how I found out its name and the story about it, because they might not even know, but maybe they've seen it around.
Yeah, I'll have to ask him. I know it's changed hands a couple times, like owners. So I have no idea what the state of that house.
Yeah,
would.
It'd be interesting to find it on like Google Maps, like just to see, does it look totally disheveled from the outside? Has it been listed for sale where you could see like interior and exterior photos of it? And then you could even have like, you know, screenshots of or photos of that
I could probably dig out the photo albums because that was back in the dinosaur days, pre-phone camera
where you actually printed them and put them in the little
got some photo albums of that trip going on.
Oh,
so
cool.
I might be able to, and I mean I could probably look it up and find it on Google.
That would be amazing, just to see if it's still there, if it looks like it's being taken care of, see if you can see like aerial shots of the pool area. That would be fascinating. Interesting. That's really cool.
I'm like recalling, because he's been in a couple different houses. I think this one ended up like that whole neighborhood kind of took a nosedive.
Sure.
Yeah. So, but I mean, you could probably still look it up and see what it used to look like.
Absolutely.
I mean, like, for that area of Florida, like, it was just always kind of like a different vibe, like a little mini Terra is what I always kind of referred to it as.
Neat.
That's cool.
Yeah. That is a great story. Thank you so much for waiting for us and sharing it. I asked Lindsay before you called him, like, am I going to like this person? And I'm like so excited that it's you. Just so everybody knows, I love this person, and we worked together for several years at the same school. So I've been missing you.
Yep. Yeah. Do you know that Jamie and I are we're emceeing our talent show on Thursday night?
Oh, fabulous.
Thursday night, right? Yes. Thank you so much for your story. I know you had a long work day, so I appreciate it.
All right. Well, you ladies have a fabulous night.
We will.
Bye, Jamie.
Bye. Bye.
That was awesome.
So what'd you think?
I think you planned tonight's episode beautifully. Super interesting.
Wow.
Lots of cool stories.
That's high praise.
We can, all those people will hopefully listen and enjoy their stories. So thank you to everybody who answered Lindsay's post request.
For sure. Now, with Jamie's story, I wanted to just say a couple things that I found with research too.
Okay.
If that's okay. Some believe children are normally more in tune with spirits or other dimensions because they haven't been conditioned to block out the unexplainable. There's also the concept of imaginary friends. While psychology tells us these are a normal part of childhood development, in some cases, the details kids provide make them sound less imaginary and more like unseen visitors.
But this story, her story, she had specific details.
Yep. Like Jamie's daughter and Peter. Are these just psychological quirks, or do kids really see things we don't? We may never know for sure, Amanda.
We're gonna find out. Through the process of having this podcast together, however long we do this, we're going to get all the answers to the universe by the end of it.
Put it on a vision board. All the answers to the universe. It's got to be a big-ass board.
So you got to listen every week with us so you can go on the journey with us.
Well, and also so that we can get your knowledge, because it's not an educational podcast unless you educate us. So here's some fun homework. We'd love to hear from you. Has a child in your life ever said something that gave you the heebie-jeebies? How did you respond? Send us your stories, please, please, please. Tell us all about it on our The Paranormal Classroom Facebook page. Send us a message on Instagram or email us at theparanormalclassroom@gmail.com. And be sure to join us next time when Amanda will surely be serving up another fascinating topic. I can't wait. I never can wait. It's my favorite night of the week. Stay curious.
Class dismissed.
And don't open the door.